Hi there, I'm Nicola Chatham and welcome to Tool Time. No, it's not with Tim the Toolman Taylor, and hopefully we won't end by blowing up the house. Instead, I'm just going to share with you some of my favourite tools in this ongoing segment. But this week we're going to focus on something that I never read about in gardening books as being one of the most useful tools. In fact, it wasn't until actually getting out in the garden and just stumbling across it and then discovering that other gardeners also secretly love this tool as well. And it's a way of transporting materials around the garden, and it's not the old humble wheelbarrow, it's actually the much more humble bucket. Buckets are amazing. They're so much more useful for me than a wheelbarrow, probably largely because we're on a slope, and so using a wheelbarrow can be a bit problematic. It's easier to tip over and it takes a bit more effort to move it around. The cool thing with buckets is you don't have to be carrying around a huge amount of material, and then if you're with a wheelbarrow and you get to the edge of your bed, say you've got piled high with compost and whatnot, you have to then just tip it out and it ends up all on one side and not where you actually want it. Whereas with a bucket you can fill it up with the compost and then come along, and it's quite easy to manoeuvre and to put the material exactly where you want it. The other benefit, of course, with a bucket is they're so cheap. You know, these ones you can get for anywhere from $2.50 to $7, and they're nice and sturdy. You can get them from builders. You can also get them from delis and places that buy food in bulk. And they're nice and strong, but you can also use ones. I've had success with just the cheap ones that you get from the hardware store as well. Now, the other cool thing about buckets is what, Nikki? Oh yeah. So I was saying this to my mum, how much I love to use buckets, and she said, wow, that's really interesting, because back when she was living on a suburban block and she was right into gardening, she said that she used buckets all the time, and that was just a small block, so she was surprised to hear that I found them so useful on 1.5 acres. But again, like I've said before, most of the gardening that I'm doing is in an intensive small space, and buckets are just perfect for that. You can move your manures, you can move your compost and rock minerals, even hay. I've used them to help carry that around, and they are obviously a lot cheaper than a wheelbarrow. So when we first got here, I was super excited and went out and purchased a wheelbarrow, and then Chris was like, well, that's not such a great wheelbarrow, perhaps we need a different one. So we got 2 wheelbarrows, and most of the time now they sit under a tree and are unused, whereas we've got old buckets for 1/10 of the price. Sometimes 5% of the price have probably been used for 85% of jobs. So invest in a good bucket for yourself today, and or just use one that you've got lying under the house, and happy gardening. If you enjoyed this simple tip, share it with your friends and hit the like button, and we'll all get out there and get into the garden and start growing some more of our own food at home.